Hi, it's Jill Schlesinger, host of Better Off, and today we are talking about how to unite girls with the wisdom of women.
As a fellow athlete, I felt that I could not only understand who they were, what they needed, and how to help build their careers, but I knew how to compete. And I also knew that as I looked around the business table, that every one of those businessmen probably wished that they were an athlete, and so I had something up on them.
Welcome to the Better Off podcast. We're sponsored by Betterment, the largest independent online financial advisor. So I just want to come out of the closet right now and tell you I am a woman. Yep, it's true. And I'm very interested in trying to get more and more women and girls interested in doing things that are traditionally male-dominated. For example, finances, financial planning, some of the tech industries. But I can't get to the girls early enough. Our guest, Donna Orender, she can. Donna has a great background. She was actually president of the Women's National Basketball Association, before that an executive at the PGA Tour. And she has created a movement called WOWsdom. And she's written a book, The Girl's Guide to the Positive and the Possible, WOWsdom. I thought it would be fun to have her during the summer months. She just wrote this book, just published. I'm actually in the book. So is my friend Lisa Shalett. I invited both Donna and Lisa into the studio to help explain what's behind WOWsdom and a little bit about their own careers in male-dominated fields. So here's our interview with Donna Orender and Lisa Shalett.
You're listening to Better Off with Jill Schlesinger.
Well, we've got a very big show today. Two guests. One who really had no idea she was going to be sitting in the room with a microphone. The other one kind of knew. So Donna Orender and Lisa Shalett, welcome to the Better Off podcast.
We're glad to be better off this morning.
You are. Nice. Mm-hmm. So, Donna, you don't know this, but Lisa does. We start the podcast with a very specific question, which is, what is the best financial decision that you've ever made?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt, buying my home.
Everyone says that. It's like actually a sort of like a very classic one.
I'm sorry to be so classic.
It's
but
good.
Honestly, I always wished I was one of those people who bought a house and then it was worth so much more money. And then I realized one day I was one of those people.
Yeah, it's kind of, but you're not selling it. You like your house.
I'm never selling it. So.
All right. She's going out feet first. Lisa Shalett, Camp Point of Pines.
Yes.
A camp friend of mine forever and ever.
Forever.
What's the best financial decision or career decision? I'll give you both of those as a choice.
You know, I think in both cases the answer would be the same, and that is deciding to go to Harvard Business School. That was something that was never in my life plan, but was something I realized that was smart to do. And once I did that, it really changed the course of my life and how I thought about my opportunities.
All right. Why are you here today? Because Donna has created a movement, if you will. WOWsdom, the Girl's Guide to the Positive and the Possible. Donna, tell us a little bit about why this movement began and how did this happen?
It started when I was born a woman, a girl.
That's amazing.
And
wait a second. You were born where?
Actually, I was born here, right here in New York.
Born in New York, but now you live in Florida, of all places. Very strange.
Why, don't all the New Yorkers? I went to North Florida. That is strange,
Yeah,
actually. Not South Florida.
Yeah. You born in New York.
Right.
You go to college?
I do go to college.
You're an athlete, right?
I am an athlete.
What kind of athlete?
A committed athlete. Played like 7 sports in high school. Crazy. I decided I loved the sport that girls shouldn't love, which was basketball.
Love basketball.
Right.
And you're tiny.
I am. You know what? I always thought I was so huge. I thought I was big, but now people are much bigger than I am.
Wingspan.
Yeah.
Wingspan. No, actually, no. This is what I always say, Jill. And when I talk to kids, I'll say, you know what? It's not how tall you are. It's how tall your heart is.
Ooh. All right. Okay. Well, what position did you play in basketball?
I was a shooting guard.
Of course you were.
Or a point guard.
Again, tiny. Did you play basketball in college?
I played at one of the top teams right here, a storied team in the nation, which was top 10 every year, history-making team, first women's team ever to play at Madison Square Garden.
And what the team was?
The Queens College. part of the city university system.
What happened after that? After you played, and did you win a championship of some sort?
We were always top 10 in the nation. We had a lot of firsts. However, when I went to graduate, the first women's professional league was created. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
And so I got to play I was a professional athlete.
Get out. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. I played all 3 years in the women's professional basketball league. And interestingly enough, the league was just inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Wow. Congratulations.
Well, we got pioneer status. I mean, I'm happy about it, but really? Pioneer? Makes you feel old, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess.
Old and tiny. I'm leaving.
Oh. So who made that league? How did that league come about?
It was a bunch of businessmen that came together and decided that they wanted to create a women's professional basketball league. Bill Byrne was the original guy out of Chicago.
Who else played in that league that we would have heard of?
Nancy Lieberman played in that league.
Tallest Jewish woman alive, I think. I thought I had that role, but someone told me, no, I've met Nancy Lieberman. I think she's 6'2".
6'1". I think you might be taller.
No, I'm 5'11".
Really?
Yeah,
you look so much taller.
Nancy Lieberman.
Carol Blazejowski. And then one of my friends to this day, probably one of the greatest women basketball players ever, is Annie Myers.
Wow.
She came to play right after. I don't know if you know this. She was the first woman to ever try out for an NBA team, the Indiana Pacers.
Wow.
And they paid her $50,000. She shows up at our practice. I thought she was the richest woman in the world.
She was to you.
Oh, my gosh. $50,000 they paid her. And then she probably got, I don't know what the WBL paid her, but I can assure you it wasn't that.
What happens after you're 3 years after you've done this professional?
I cry. I'm washed up. I'm retired at 22. I mean, can you imagine?
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Done. And then what?
And then I began a job in broadcast, in sports broadcast. And so I actually worked at the network. I worked in cable television. I worked for ultimately the PGA Tour. I built their
Now, how did you
production
do that? So let's talk a little bit about that. So you get involved. You're in the PGA Tour. You become sort of like a big shot at the PGA Tour. Mm-hmm. What'd you do? They first brought me in to run their production company. Okay.
And I had to do it in Florida. So at that point in time, it was very strange. People up here didn't think we had plumbing. They would send me pictures and say, hey, remember this place? This is what it looks like. Do you have plumbing? Is electricity working down there? Can you really make television in Florida? It was really, really fun.
You were surrounded by men? This was the PGA, not LPGA.
This is the PGA Tour.
So
100%
all men.
All men.
And so you're a trailblazer, right?
I was.
You're a pioneer.
I was a pioneer. I was, and it was all male athletes and all male management.
How'd you deal with that, being the only chick?
It's funny. I didn't look at myself as a woman, which is an interesting growth perspective for a lot of women. I looked at myself as an athlete, and as a fellow athlete, I felt that I could not only understand who they were, what they needed, and how to help build their careers, but I knew how to compete. And I also knew that as I looked around the business table, that every one of those businessmen probably wished that they were an athlete. And so I had something up on them.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Right?
All right. And then from PGA, WNBA?
From the PGA Tour, I got recruited. Yeah, I got recruited by Adam Silver if I was interested in becoming the president commissioner of the WNBA.
And so you come into the WNBA. You do that for a while.
I do. It was
How long?
6 years. 6 years. Hardest job, best job. So, yeah, totally amazing.
Why is it so hard?
Because do you go to work every day and everyone tell you that you can't do that job, that it's an impossible thing, it's going to close tomorrow? If you show up tomorrow, it's not going to be here. Probably the greatest amount of negativity I've ever experienced.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, but you know what's good about it?
What?
You learn how to deal with it and make it a positive.
Okay, that's good. What year did you leave the WNBA?
2010, cusp of 11.
10, 11. And then now tell us about how you became a cheerleader for Positive and Possible for Girls.
I would tell you that working on behalf of the WNBA, right, this huge iconic brand that's all about strong women, was an awakening.
What was woken you?
Here I was tasked with creating a viable business that had strong women at the center of it. And I always like to talk about being on the cusp of the wave of cultural and economic change. And I learned about how the world felt about women in this capacity, and it wasn't pretty.
And so how did you get involved in creating this big conference that you hold?
Well, I was fortunate that when I was with the WNBA, I spoke all over the world, had tremendous access. And I think the moment it went off is I went to Maria Shriver's conference in California. I remember all the governors had their wives did conferences. And it was amazing. And under Maria's guidance, it was amazing. And I looked around the room, and I sat right behind Caroline Kennedy, and next to me was a hairdresser from Fresno. And I loved that. I just loved that. And I said, I'm going to go home. I'm going to create a gift for my city. I'm going to bring women together because I know there are women in every single city. Oprah's not number one because of the women in New York or the women in Chicago. It's the women in Jacksonville and Birmingham and all across. And I'm going to do something in our city that's going to be a thought leadership gathering place that really helps women elevate themselves. And that's how it all started.
Okay. Now, I'm going to shift away from you for a second.
Please.
Lisa Shalett. First of all, Lisa, full disclosure, Lisa and I went to camp together, and she is a phenomenal tennis player and a wonderful friend. So, Lisa, when you met Donna, you were still at Goldman Sachs or not at Goldman Sachs?
Yes, I was still at Goldman Sachs. I was a partner responsible for brand marketing and digital strategy, which meant that I was in the right place at the right time to run Goldman's brand during the financial crisis.
Oh, my gosh. So, Lisa and I got back into one another's lives, I think in 2009-ish.
It was 2010.
10. And I was doing some sort of conference, and my brother-in-law works at Goldman Sachs, and he forwards this thing about the fact that I'm doing something about social media for financial service firms. He forwards the invitation from the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association to Lisa, who he knew. And he said, oh, you might be interested. But he didn't say, this is my sister-in-law. He said, I think you might be interested in this.
I think this might be interesting to you because who else was talking about social media and financial services back in 2010? You know, brands weren't on, LinkedIn, Facebook, no Twitter, et cetera. These were emerging markets. And lo and behold, someone sends me an incredibly valuable, event to attend. And I would have opened any email from John anyway, but I open it and staring back at me with very little change, exactly the face of this amazing woman I remember. I just was pinching myself, and so I write back to John. I say, you have to ask Jill if she went to this camp and knows me by my maiden name. And sure enough, that was the reconnection.
5 minutes later, we're on the phone.
Which is thanks to SIFMA.
Thank you. Or John
fantastic.
O'Connell.
Of course, John O'Connell.
Bringing together Jewish girls at every turn.
Amazing.
So Lisa, I just want to go back in time. You said the best financial or career decision was attending Harvard Business School.
Yep.
You went to Harvard undergrad. You were studying
East Asian Studies.
And then when you graduated from Harvard, what'd you do?
I went to Japan and was an intern at the largest, but outside of Japan, very little known, TV and media company in Japan, making Japanese game shows and a home shopping show. And I did that for a year and a half in Tokyo and then came back and did that in New York with them.
But what's so wild about that is that we're talking about the late 80s,
yes.
right? And you are in Japan, which was supposedly the country that was taking over the universe, right?
Yes. So I decided to major in East Asian Studies, having won a scholarship in high school to do a homestay in Japan. I am shocked to this day that my parents let their oldest daughter pre-internet go to the other side of the world to a country they had never been to, where I don't speak the language, where I'm allergic to fish, and I was taller than everyone, and managed to have this life-changing, incredible experience that then made me want to go back to that family one day and speak Japanese, hence giving up my desire to be an English major and immersing myself in East Asian Studies.
Oh, my God. Okay, so then
that's an incredible story.
Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
I mean, the thing that I love about it is like the risk taking, but it doesn't feel like a risk at the time. It's like, this sounds like a great thing. I'll just do it.
It was a clueless risk. I wouldn't call it a smart risk. In retrospect, it looks like a smart risk.
I would take credit for it, Lisa.
It was just
own it, baby.
But at that time, Japan was not a place most people went, and my parents were freaking out that I would be an East Asian Studies major with a fish allergy and therefore couldn't even open up a sushi restaurant. And by the time I graduated in the late 80s, Japan had taken over the world, was the number one economic power, and I looked like a genius. But in fact, it was for purely sentimental reasons that I really wanted to understand what had happened to me in high school.
All right, you go to Harvard Business School, you come out, you go work at Goldman Sachs. Is that your first job?
No. I first went to Bertelsmann, the German media company, who in the interviewing process at HBS was the only company that had ever heard of Fujisankei. They recognized the Japanese company. They, broke every recruiting rule and wanted me to be part of this phenomenal internship that they offered to be executive assistant to the president of a division, and had me join them to start, you will laugh because of the obsolescence, 8 CDs for the price of one, nothing more to buy ever. A phenomenally successful negative option direct marketing club that was taken over the world. And they had tremendous success in the U.S., wanted to start it in Japan, and they hired me to do that while being based in New York. A week's due diligence revealed that negative option direct marketing at that time was illegal in Japan. And
Whoops.
So
A little oops.
I ended up, it wasn't their fault, they just didn't know. And so I ended up doing non-Japan related things. And sometimes when you have an absence of a thing that you love, you realize how much you love it. And so I knew I wanted to do something Japan related and found a job first at Barclays and then at Goldman called Japanese Equity Sales.
What was that to you? What did that mean to you when you saw it?
When I saw it, it meant that someone was going to pay me to talk to smart people about Japan all day, and that hopefully I would be able to learn everything else associated with it. I mean, I came to that job having had an MBA, but, it was still when the movie Wall Street was popular and did not seem like the right place for me. And so I was just delighted to discover that that role existed and felt like I was in my element.
And you moved back to Japan then?
Nope,
Or
I
you
did
did
that,
it all
I did
from
that
New
in
York?
New York.
Okay. And then what? Because now this is a very interesting thing to me. Miss Donna, I'm just spending a little time with my friend Lisa.
I'm loving this.
You've heard her life story before or no?
No, Jill, you know what I'm so amazed? Is that you know somebody so well, and it's not until they talk in front of thousands and millions of people do you actually learn more?
Millions is aspirational, but thank you. Okay, so the thing that's interesting is that usually people who go into sales and trading, sales or trading, but it's now one department, right? They stay in that for their careers.
Right.
You were able to shift out of different silos in a very large institution. So how long were you dealing with the Japanese equity sales department?
So started in New York on a small desk in a sea of U.S. shares, as you might imagine, then moved to Tokyo for 2 years and co-headed the Japanese shares business globally, then came back to New York and became head of international equities, which was the department I started in, which was kind of cool. But all
what did you do in that job? Like when you say I'm a head, like someone's listening to this, what does that mean? I'm head of international equities.
That means that I oversee the sales and trading activities for all of the North America-based clients that are dealing in non-U.S. equity markets.
Okay, so that's a big job.
It was a big job, and it was a fantastic job. But all told, at Goldman, I was in the securities division for 11 years and made partner in that division. I, thought that would have been, to your point, the way I would have progressed in my career. I never thought, especially for a time I was the only woman partner in the equities division globally, that they would let me out. And so when the opportunity came to become the chief operating officer of global compliance, in the very beginning of 2006, I was flabbergasted. I never thought that was something in my path. And I think that was my first smart risk.
So you went on and then you ended up doing branding when the financial crisis hit. You killed it. You got this big old investment behemoth to come out of its shell, own that vampire squid thing, deal with it, and really have a public face for the first time. Did you think about this sucks because I'm a woman and this is harder for me? Or were you much more like, no, this is great, I'm just achieving? How did you navigate this?
I think it's hard not to be conscious of gender, especially as you get to a more senior leadership role. But to Donna's earlier point about creating opportunities, I always view that as a tremendous platform. And it was wonderful to have women partners. There were many male partners who were very supportive of all partners, including women. And I think while Wall Street often is criticized for not necessarily having the proportion of women that it wants to, I do think that great efforts are made, and I was part of those and glad to be part of those. But I took very seriously the scarcity and the importance of being what you can see. and being a role model. Donna and I are both mothers of sons.
That's correct.
And so, it's here we are talking about, a movement that Donna has created and that I am incredibly inspired by that relates to girls and women. But I always, as a mother of sons, think how important it is for me to raise good men. Mm-hmm. Because they are part of the equation. And I think about that all of the time.
I always like to say my sons are Renaissance men in the making.
In the making, I like that.
This is Better Off with Jill Schlesinger.
We'll get back to our interview with Donna Orender and Lisa Shalett in just a minute. Hey, look, there is not a natural transition that I'm about to make to go into our sponsor, Betterment. So let me just say this. Teach your girls and boys well and spend time doing that instead of spending time on worrying and perseverating about your financial life. It's a better use of your time. I can promise you that. Finances, big and small, can be confusing, which is why you're probably spinning your wheels many times. Understanding the market, it can be intimidating, which is why, again, you're spending too much time worrying about it without really understanding it. Fortunately, our sponsor, Betterment, is here to change that. Betterment makes recommendations in their clients' best interest. That's called the fiduciary standard. Betterment's not incentivized to recommend certain funds. They don't even have their own investment products to sell. Betterment offers personalized advice, a suite of tools to help you know whether you're on track to hit your goals. Better Off listeners, you can get up to 1 year managed free. For more information, visit betterment.com/betteroff. That's betterment.com/betteroff. And now back to our interview with author Donna Orender and Lisa Shalett. So in the book WOWsdom, The Girl's Guide to the Positive and the Possible, Donna, what you have done is you've highlighted a number of different people, women, girls, and some men, who write letters to themselves as their younger selves. And so Lisa participated. I participated as well. I didn't write a letter. I guess I didn't make the cut, Lisa. You know what? I was asked to give advice.
No. The book is wrapped in words of wisdom. It's wrapped in wow.
Get it? Wow, words of wisdom.
And you are wow, Jill. Come on.
I love it. So, Lisa, I'm not going to make you read your whole letter.
Okay.
The headline is Define Yourself by Your Strengths, Not Your Weaknesses. I think this is such a important message. I think that not just for women, but also for men as well. And I love that you did this. And so in your letter to yourself and to dear young Lisa, you write, your first line is, I know you love when people get right to the point, so I'll bring the wisdom, which made me laugh out loud when I first read that line. You say, be your own source of self-confidence, focus on your strengths, define yourself by those strengths, not by your weaknesses. And the last part that I love, recruit a squad of trusted advisors. So when you're a young person or you're a mom or a dad reading this, there's a guide here. It says, name your top 3 strengths. When you were a kid, what were your top 3 strengths?
Oh, my gosh. That's much harder than the question about my best financial decision. I guess when I was young, other than tennis, of course.
Right.
Number 1, I worked really hard. I was dedicated. I was committed. I put in the work. And that meant, studying a lot and getting good grades and things like that. 2, I was always taught to be really, really kind. And, I consider that a strength, although sometimes that can be a weakness. Mm-hmm. I think the 3rd was that I was considered a good friend. And it was important for me to be considered a good friend. And I really tried to be that.
I love that. I mean, I think that working hard is very underestimated as a strength. I think that most people would be surprised to learn that most successful women that I know, they work their butts off, whatever it is.
I still have a big butt, but I worked it off many times. Yes.
But I mean,
yes.
So Donna, when you were a kid, what were your top 3 strengths?
Oh, gosh. It's really funny as I hear Lisa's strengths, they overlap pretty well. Totally embraced whatever the opportunity was. Just went for it. All in, all the time, was not deterred. I was just going to make it happen.
I think that resilience is also, like working hard and resilience, like just keeping at it. I think you learned that as an athlete, though, right?
It really is, right? Because here I am, I'm a young athlete when girls really weren't athletes, and everyone was looking at you, and you felt it. You feel the eyes on your back. You feel the comments like, what are you doing? I mean, my grandmother's eyes weren't on my back. Her words were in my face. What are you doing? You know what I mean?
That's
so you have to learn how to deal with that. And I think that built up an inner strength that actually probably days I can use some even more of.
But so important to have the conversation. You know, when you're a young girl or it could be a young boy, you're not necessarily talking about strengths. You know, you're not there weren't words back then like resilience. And so, you know, awakening and awareness is so key so early.
I totally agree.
I think what's interesting is that a lot of the successful women that I have met do have some competitive streak, whether it's from organized sports or just they are competitive in general. And I think that as an athlete, you learn about working hard. You learn about picking yourself up when you get kicked down. And you learn about how to play well with others if you're good, right? And so I always say that the best thing you can do for your young daughters is to please have them play organized sports so they learn those lessons even if they hate it.
And another point, and it doesn't matter at what level.
Right.
You do not, I always say this, how many people in this room are an athlete? And you do not have to be an elite athlete to qualify. You just have to want to play.
Although you were an elite athlete.
Well, I was able to pursue my passion at a high level, and that was a gift.
Lisa also writes a beautiful one-pager here about making the most of mentorship. And the thing that I do like about this is that you are a wonderful mentor, Lisa. You're a connector. That's how I met Donna, through
Correct.
Lisa. Right? Lisa's a connector.
I'm telling you, Lisa has a talent that is we are all celebrating. Many of us across.
I know. I just want to monetize it for you.
That's exactly what I said to her the other day. I called her up. I said, Lisa.
Why are we talking about me?
As if she's not here, Jill. It's quite fine.
That's fine. Anyway, I love this about mentoring because you say it's a two-way street, that mentees should be specific. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I will just speak from my experience, and that is a great mentor is somebody who is actively listening in order to be helpful. And the best way to be helpful is to know how to help. And coming to your mentor with some specific things you'd like help with, at least for me, then gets my mind going. Then I can think, how can I best be helpful? What can I do? Because I'm biased to take an action on their behalf. Sometimes just listening is an action.
Right.
But to the extent that there's specificity and a way that somebody can say, here's how I need some help, or here's how we can collaborate. I love that, and I like to rise to the challenge.
That's awesome. I wrote a little bit about money and how it does matter, and I really am so grateful that you asked me to participate, Donna, in this book.
Listen, I would like to go on the record that say, even as I just met you, you said, I would be happy to help in any way I can. You didn't even know this book was really, really happening, and I just want to say that is really a positive light that emanates from you, Jill.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
It is, but who better on this topic, especially? I mean, my goodness.
Exactly.
I mean, everyone's writing about the Unga Bunga stuff. Mark, you'll like this. That my 3 biggies are: use your allowance sparingly, learn the basics of interest, and understand your taxes. Save, checking and savings and all that.
But think about this. You girls do not learn about this. Women don't.
But people don't learn about
Right.
this.
Right.
That's what I would say. That like young people are not immersed in this. We do need to change our curriculum to include this. We don't do it.
Right.
We should. I want to ask you another question about the book itself.
But can I just give you one more compliment?
Yes,
I just
why
want
not?
you
I'll take it. I'm happy
I just
to.
want you to know. So when people go through the book,
Yeah.
invariably you can see the images, the illustrations. Every page was hand drawn.
Yeah.
They see the checkbook, they see the money, and they go, "Oh!" It communicates that there is a basic level of guidance and teaching that you don't get other places.
Right.
And Jill, you're a big part of that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. What do you want to happen with this movement? People are going to listen to this, and we want them to buy the book, WOWsdom, The Girl's Guide to the Positive and the Possible, and we will obviously have links to this so they can buy. But what else do you want to happen now that the book is out and available?
Well, actually, it has been happening. The book actually is following a movement of girls. And it started with the creating of Generation WOW, which was an offshoot of Generation W. And basically, we took girls and we put them all together for this day of incredible positive energy. Lisa will be there. You're invited this year in November. And we saw the impact on girls of not only hearing positive messages, but we had mentorship. So Jerry Laybourne wrote the foreword. She created this thing called the Mentor Walk, which is now done in 44 countries. I've done 4 with her. Actually 1 in India, and we did that for the girls. And so we pair up the girls with the future leaders of tomorrow, with the leaders of today, and we create connections. I think that's the most powerful superpower, is the ability to connect. And I mean, look at us, right? Here we are. And so what happened was, I didn't want to create the Girl Scouts. I just wanted this moment to plant seeds. Well, the girls loved it. They started creating clubs in their schools. We went, oh my goodness, they are telling us this is resonating. So we then wrote curriculum. We started to build curriculum. And as we did that, that's how the book emerged. So right now we're in 2 school districts and the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville. We launch in October. The Orlando school system is launching 20 clubs. We are over the chart from requests in Duval County schools in our area. I guess the sweetest thing was we got an email from a woman who's in Ohio, said, hi, I want my daughter to be a WOW girl. And I'm like, okay, how did you find us? She goes, well, I see your stuff on the web, and she's just got to be it, because a WOW is a girl who wants to be the best she can be. It's not about her grades, right? It's not about her excellence in school. It's about wanting to be your best person and then willing to share that with the world. And so I guess our hope, and I think why I can't speak for Lisa or any of us, is that this becomes a connection for girls to really realize their best selves in their journey of self-discovery.
What an amazing, that to me is the sort of the kernel of this, which is how we can start as early as possible to bring that beautiful message to girls and boys, as you say, and like we want boys to be respectful, but girls, you got a special hurdle that you have to climb over in this world, and we want to help you.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, I think when we talked about this, we said we all wanted girls to not have to say, I wish I would have known. How many times do we say that? I wish I would have known. Or that feeling of aloneness. No one else has been through what I've been through. Wait a second. If you pick up this book, like my mother, right? We all have girls in us. She says, Donna, I'm reading your book. I'm like, that's really nice, Mom. Actually, she paid for it. I was really happy. And she goes, but I'm crying. I'm like, why are you crying, Mom? She goes, these letters speak to me. And then I read a letter, and I think it's good for my friend. So I call her up, and I read her that letter and her letters. And her friend says, that letter is me. And I'm like, wow, right? Yeah. It's authentic, and it's soulful, and it's real. And right, you read Lisa's letter, right? It's so great. And her all of it. It's just... as you can tell, I have never been prouder of something, because I really believe that it is a great something for people to be better.
So I usually end the podcast asking what your worst financial decision is, but I'm not going to do that because I like ending on this note of positivity. Thanks so much to our guests, Donna Orender, the author of WOWsdom, and Lisa Shalett, participant in the WOWsdom movement. Don't forget, we drop new episodes of Better Off every Tuesday and Thursday. And you can download the show anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Google Play, radio.com, Stitcher, anywhere you find those favorite podcasts. You can always go to our website, jillonmoney.com. And we got all the past episodes. We got everything you need. Our music is composed by Joel Goodman. Mark Talercio is our executive producer. We're distributed by Cadence 13, and we're sponsored by Betterment. See you next week.